This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Good morning, truth seekers and true crime junkies. Nanette Bartow back with another episode of Hit the Road Jack, Finding the Zodiac. Today, we're actually going to step into the second set of Lover Lane murders in the Zodiac case. We've got our first communications from the Zodiac, and of course, we're going to start into some of the solves. And we have a couple solves on this one. And today, Harriette Sucher will be here with us to describe some of these solves and discuss some of the things that we researched and spoke about with one of the individuals who had made a solve in this particular case. So I'd like to welcome on Harriette.
Yes. Good morning again.
I was like, what is she doing here? It's too early in the AM. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even know how to introduce her anymore. But she's here and we love her. Hi, Harriette.
I'm here, trying to have my hat on. It's a little cold, but so I figure I'll wear this cute little hat that matches this shirt. But anyways, that's what
it is cute. It is cute.
We're not fashionistas this early in the morning.
No, we're not. I'm wearing my aftershock,
But I gotta admit, I've been collecting jewelry. I have jewelry since I was 6 months old. So because my family, got my jewelry when I was baptized and stuff. So since I was a kid, I've been collecting. So I thought, this is a chance to wear all my jewelry.
Absolutely.
Because that's where I got my code breaking was learning how to find things about jewelry and all kinds of symbols, what they might mean. I mean, I've been doing this in the end, like since a kid. So
now I want to go ahead and start with some laundry and research. So before we climb into the actual case today, I want to just catch up with some things that occurred this last week. So we're going to go to the presentation real quick and then we'll come back. I had an interesting experience yesterday. Like I said, the only time that my technology seems to go on the fritz or have issues is when I'm dealing with the Zodiac case. So this is kind of this is just a snippet of my screen as I was working on the case yesterday. I realized that last week I did not make the connection between the statement that I had watched the Madoff documentary and that how it relates to Epstein and the major newspapers and the Jewish descent that is following. But I decided to go back and take a look at some things because I kept having one particular newspaper come up, and that was the Cleveland Plain Dealer. So I started to research some other communications that were actually pointed towards newspapers. And as I was doing that yesterday, I came back to my screen. I couldn't move or manipulate anything, and I had all of this weird design that's going on. So if you can see up here in the right-hand corner, it looks like somebody put some old school Atari type images. And different things were highlighted, whether they were actually text or not, which was rather interesting. Anyways, I quickly saved the PowerPoint because, as we know, the last time I had technological issues, I literally lost nearly all the images that I had put into this PowerPoint presentation. And we're talking thousands and thousands of images. So I quickly saved it and recovered it. And I'm guessing that everything is back to normal now. But I thought that was interesting because I've never seen that happen before. I almost felt like I was going to ask Juan, have you ever seen a program do this? But the bottom line is I've never seen this happen on any other PowerPoint presentation that I've ever worked on. And I've been working on them for about 15 years. Oh, he has a virus. Okay. Well, that's because absolutely
We used to
investigating this
call the
case.
virus being Boynton crew.
Hey, it may be. Like I said, and really, I was only looking at, for a majority's sake, I was looking at the Wikipedia pages, but I did actually skip onto some of Voight's stuff and a couple other websites where I obtained some images from, and there is a good chance. I mean, I've
You picked up a
seen
bug.
this. Yeah, I've seen this. Well, then I better figure out how to fix that. I'll have to talk to you after the show then there, Juan. So yeah, basically it did that. I shut it down. I did a restart. It sent me into a restart when I shut down to restart my computer for the podcast last night. And hopefully that doesn't mean that I just, installed it on everything that I had. We'll see. Anyways, I have stayed safe with what I have. I've made backups. I have printed it so that in the event that I ever have to recover anything, I have a printed copy of it. So I'm feeling like even if I have to change computers at this point, I can pick up where I left off. But figuring out where that virus is going to be the challenge, I suppose. Anyways, some of the YouTube comments that I received last week. Again, these comments here that I'm going to talk about, I could not physically go to on the YouTube site. I was able to respond to at least one of them, but after that, I wasn't able to go back to them any longer. So I had to take them out of my email in order to see the full message. But I had a Kathy Klein who sent me a message saying, so, do you want to know the answer to all of Z's ciphers? Which is interesting because this is a cipher week. Crickets, she says. Not one is a cipher, she says. You don't need a cryptologist, and one of us could do them all in a day, and I did. Laugh out loud. They are something else. I do not think the Zodiac knew how to cipher, and he is a big baby, and all he did in the Z340, not the 4 lines David did, was, and I don't know who David is because she didn't elaborate.
Jack. Anyways,
it is. Was complain about issues of the day, supposedly. Tells you what geniuses the law enforcement is. And he's not Jack Torrance either. Well, nope, he's not Jack Torrance. I've argued this many times. Every time Jack gets arrested under the wrong name, Torrance. No, it's not Jack Torrance. It's Terrence. Thank you. Tarrance. His name is in 3 puzzles. Whose name? So again, did you watch this Orange Hack thing, and who are they trying to accuse now?
Mm-hmm.
Harriette, who are they trying to accuse?
Who are they trying to appease?
Accuse.
Accuse. Oh my God.
She says that the guy's name is in it in 3 of the puzzles. Did you watch that?
It's got to be the latest one that you said your daughter may know that it's got to be the latest guy.
Who?
I'm trying to remember his name, but it's the one that you said that. Yeah, it's got to be
Door.
Yeah, because you will see a D. You will see a D and an O and an E and an R. You'll see, because I'm pretty sure that's what they're referring to, because that's the latest one with all with the big book out with the money.
Wow, exactly. So, and I tried to explain to Sandy Betts that obviously I don't buy into anything that David Oranchak has going on. She says he's nice and that he's on the up and up, but quite frankly, if you're blaming a man that couldn't possibly, we've already discussed why Dorr is not the Zodiac Killer. And again, if I have to bring my niece on here to describe the day's events as she lived next door to him all of her life, we'll realize that he is not the Zodiac Killer. Anyway, so I did respond to that, and I asked her to send me the solves. And of course, I got no response in regards to that. What she did send back was finding the Zodiac. They are not ciphers, not one of them. I did recheck David, and there was only a few little errors using my methodology. So she claims she's solving them, not David Oranchak. You can't check his handwriting. I can't, because that's what I told her. I said, one of your issues now is there a handwriting match? Like, what are you talking about? She says, do you want to know who he is too? I can provide that as well. Let me see if I can find your email. But she never emailed me. And then the next one was Z goes really, really deep down the rabbit hole. It would take a day to tell you his live story. I didn't ask you to tell me the guy's live story. I asked you to show me your solves.
I gotta say that technically true. These are not complete ciphers, because what I found was bits and pieces of chunks. That one is is, let's say, the cipher symbols and then anagram that. A lot of them is simply, for me now, anagramming everything. So that's not exactly included in just a out and outright cipher. Whereas the cipher says, like what the Hardens did, my name is ugly and I want to kill everybody, you know.
Well, and that's my point, for her to
Yeah.
make such a silly statement that none of them are ciphers. So none of them. I'm supposed to believe you when the Hardens solved the initial cipher?
Yeah,
It was a simple substitution.
They got 80% of this, I believe 80% of the cipher goes the bottom 13, whatever.
18, yeah.
But technically, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I found them not to be one solid cipher, because I'm finding through what I did is that one section is a cipher. The next section is code keys plus cipher anagram. The next section is just simply an anagram, you know, in a matter of words. And then you put all three of those puzzles together. So, but anyways, yeah, they want to take us down that rabbit hole. And then next thing you know, they're going to say, if you really don't believe me, buy the latest book by such and such on Faust.
I don't know if he was in the hunt for the Zodiac, which is the new documentary that's out trying to blame or to claim that Ross and Gaikowski are the suspects, because they talk about using a supercomputer in that with 40 other detectives.
There's an R and an O and an SS. It's Ross.
Yeah, pretty much the gist of it. Anything they can do to lie to the public is great. Anyways, so I did want to actually share some happy posts for you. I had somebody called San Joaquin Valley Transparency who evidently had referred subscriptions to other people in regards to the channel, which I thought was amazing. So pretty much in one day, I think I received 11 or 13 new subscriptions to the podcast channel, and that's always exciting. They kept referring to the fact that they found me through SJVT, and at the time I didn't know who it was, but I did actually finally get a message from him, and he said, "Here I am. I've been following you for years. Was excited to see you upload the documentary. I did a live stream on my San Joaquin News Network channel. Check it out if you haven't yet." So, and I'm going to look at that today. I just saw this message yesterday, so I'm going to go back and see what it is that they did on his live stream. A couple other people had indicated new sub, found you through SJVT, great content, keep up the great work, thumbs up, sending you more subs. And then JFRTBIKG KDHGA. I don't even know how. It's not like I can pronounce this. This is just a bunch of letters. He said, compelling, well done video with research provided. I just disagree with the music. There's just so many twists and turns and suspects. And I completely agree. I don't believe that there are many suspects, but I do believe that there's a lot of twists and turns. And the reason for the many suspects is because they've done a great job at trying to disseminate the information, confuse America as a whole, hoping that nobody stumbles across or figures this out. And I don't know that I disagree with the music necessarily, but Dennis chose it, not me, so it's not my business. Now, based off of last week's, when we did the handwriting, the ambidextrous handwriting on Juan, and we showed how the visual difference in what it appears when somebody uses one hand versus the other. We were talking about the purported forged letter from April of 1978, and I did skip across this list of suspected Zodiac correspondents, and I found that over here on 42478, the San Francisco Chronicle, the handwritten note, that city pig Toshi. They did a DNA sample on it, and it shows that there was one that was obtained, and then they write next to it, not authentic Zodiac letter. So I'm a little bit confused, and this is what upsets me about the disinformation and Tom Voigt and what he puts out there. Why is this even on a list of suspected Zodiac correspondents if it was considered to be not authentic? It doesn't make any sense.
It's an authentic letter. That's what I found it to be, because it says something about where they put Hoffa, where Jack and Crew put Hoffa. So, and it turned out to be, I believe, if I have it correctly, a grill cipher over the Z408. So it's an authentic letter. That's in my invariable opinion.
In my looking through this, I found that they had found six few cells were found on different letters. 3 cells were found on one letter, and the 42478 actually yielded a DNA sample that was obtained. Now, if it's not authentic, why do a DNA sample? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Have all these profiles or cells been compared to one another, and are there results? What are they? These are things that we should be being told as a public. Like, have they made any headway? Are they showing that there's a connection between these cells from one letter to the next? Either way, the handwriting examination would have been the first non-destructive test applied to determine authenticity. Then all other destructive methods turned to, such as fingerprints and DNA, would have been done. So why continue to do an examination of fingerprints if the handwriting is not authentic? It doesn't make any sense. Yet again, why continue even further to DNA test if handwriting and fingerprints are not a match as it relates to this case? And why is it still on a correspondence list for the Zodiac Killer as a suspected correspondence if it was found not to be his? I think there's a lot of confusion with this. If it has been solidly found, and it hasn't, Sherwood Morrill stands on his grounds that all of the letters that he has examined were absolutely written by the Zodiac. I stand on that same ground as he does. I don't think that he had any benefit to do anything other than to tell the truth, because he was not at the pay grade or at the level of the individuals that would want this covered up, such as the Postmaster Shimoda or the other gentleman for the State Bureau of Documents. These people are with the government, and yes, there is a benefit for them to continue to keep this sealed and shut down, because I think that Jack was operating on some of their behalfs.
Yeah, he was in the long run. And I just want to say quickly, it's 1978. I'm finding through the series of events of decoding that by that year, he's realizing they didn't get paid, but he's still finalizing things from what I call a carryover from way behind back into the 60s and 70s. So he's not really being paid, but he's still saying something. And it looks like by then they're realizing that they really need to start targeting Toshi and blame him for crap and do something, because he's not
to discredit him.
Yeah, because
maybe
Toshi,
he came close. Maybe
crap.
He was onto something. I mean, it's the Martha Mitchell effect. Whenever somebody's trying to tell the truth, they're made to look crazy, insane, or screwed up somehow. I can only imagine what they're saying about me on the internet now.
well, Toshi, according to Jack, was a crooked cop, really bad. So
really?
It looks like, he was dirty. So we'll get to that as we evolve these solves, because
he did work in San Francisco, and it is one of the most corrupt places. I've been told that I was told with my concealed carry weapon that I was not allowed to carry in San Francisco, and the reason being is that it's a safe haven city or something like that. So guns are not sanctuary city. So you're not allowed to carry your gun there. And if you are found with your gun, the police officers will not only take it, but they don't report it, and you don't ever get it back. So your gun is gone, confiscated, and now belongs to someone else. And if cops are just picking these guns up off the street and taking them home because they're not reporting or turning them in, that to me is corrupt in itself. I mean, I should have an opportunity to get that gun back. Maybe I wasn't aware it was a sanctuary city and that I couldn't carry there, though I did learn that in class. So I'm safe to know that that's not where I can carry. Anyways, we are now at the July 4th, 1969 murders of Darlene Ferrin and the attempted murder of Michael Mageau at Blue Rock Springs, Vallejo, California. Now, you guys, I don't really hop into this. I don't have a huge amount of evidence other than what I could find in the FOIA files, and I don't do a lot of research into these because I think everybody can find this information out simply by looking on the internet to see what occurred to these kids. I'm more interested in the length of how this individual was able to get away with it and what that means to the rest of us and how that could have occurred. And that's what most of this presentation is about, while showing you that Jack is the best fit and his handwriting is a match. So I'm going to give you some brief information on this case as we climb into the first letters as well. So it shows that a driver of a second vehicle pulled in behind them and approached their vehicle with a flashlight that he shined in their eyes and began firing. He fired 5 times, walked away, and returned, hearing moans, to shoot each of them 2 more times. Michael survived. Some information indicated he was wearing 3 sets of clothes. I think Nolan was telling me, he read this in a book, that he believed that he and or Darlene knew that they were being targeted for something. So he was wearing, I'm hearing 3 sets of clothing. And I thought in the past that when I heard this, that I thought maybe he was trying to make himself look bigger. You know, maybe he was a skinny kid. Maybe he wanted to make make it look like he had a little beef on him by it. But Nolan had indicated that he believed that there was a possibility that they knew that they were being targeted. And I need to research some of that info because it actually coincides with some of the things we're going to hear from Sandy Betts next week. So these murders are on the murder map that was found by Sandy Betts in the back of her car. I think it was in the back of her car. I'll let her correct me next week. But Sandy Betts said that Ferrin frequented the Coronado Inn where Sandy worked, and that she only knew of Ferrin through a boyfriend, which was a cop, that she had dated for 5 years, that had had a fling with Ferrin, and Ferrin liked him a lot. So I'm not sure if Ferrin then started frequenting Sandy's workplace because she wanted to be around to either see this cop, run into this cop, or maybe even to see who Sandy was. She had indicated that Ferrin's family has stated in several instances that they were friends and knew each other, which is maybe where I had gotten the information. But Sandy said she never really absolutely knew her. She knew of her, and she knew that she frequented her workplace. So we're going to hear about what has on next week's show. We'll talk with her about her knowledge, involvement, and treatment of her throughout this whole ordeal, because I find that she's another one of those victims of the Martha Mitchell effect. Rumors were that Darlene was known to be part of a counterfeiting and racketeering group from Chicago, and she was spending the phony money and talking too much. And I believe that is the consensus of what Sandy believes as well. So on July 5th, 1969, the suspect calls in to report and claim responsibility for the attack and confesses to the earlier murder at Lake Herman Road. The police trace the call to Springs Road in Tuolumne, 3/10 of a mile from Ferrin's home and blocks away from the Vallejo Police Department. This is kind of standard for the Zodiac to do things blatantly right out in the open and up front, as in the Oakland County child murders, where one of the bodies were laid out within a distance of a housing tract and the police department. Suspect says that a black Negro, 40 to 45, saw him at the phone booth and told the police that his car was brown. Now, this is represented in other murders where the suspect calls to warn of the death. So this is, again, just a habit that the Zodiac has.
Well, I'd like to just add one thing. I mentioned about the black Negro around a certain age. That harkens back for me, because I know in the future after this, I'm seeing he's bringing up about Bill Hilliard again being a part of this outskirts of this group of people, because in the end, the long story is they're trying to get Hoffa and Giancana and anybody associated in any way. That includes dirty cops, all kinds of things are going on. So it's in theory possible that the black Negro might have been Bill Hilliard, kind of being called up again, because he owes for what happened. He helped get Nixon into the White House, so he owes a favor. So it's possible. That's just my theory, okay? Tossing that in there. Okay? That'll really get people going.
So some of the information I do have from Vallejo Police Department intel, we had shown that the call came in at 12:40 a.m., and it says, by an unknown citizen, I want to report a double murder. If you will go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway to the public park, you will find the kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye. And I'm under the impression that when he actually said this goodbye, he kind of drew it out. Goodbye. Like, it wasn't a goodbye. So when I read this, I could kind of even hear Jack saying it in my head. At 12:47, Mrs. Johnson, PT&T operator, called. The above call was traced to a coin-operated telephone at Joe's Union on Tuolumne and Springs Road. The call was traced by Betty Main, whose supervisor would not allow her to give a statement at that time. Now, this calling in, again, like I said, to report what he thought was a double murder, but he wasn't aware that Mageau had made it. He refers to a public park, and he shot them with a 9mm Luger. Now, this is a new gun in the procession here at this point, because we haven't seen the use of this caliber of a gun yet. But we did see that in Dennis's book that Gary, Jack's nephew, was under the impression that the gun that Jack was coveting at that particular time was a 9mm.
It was a Luger.
Right. and takes responsibility.
I have a solve that says he used that 9mm Luger. It's in the future. So because he's hearkening back to that time period. Anyways, yes, go.
So the phone call obviously traced to a payphone is going to be consistent with the next set of murders at Lake Berryessa, where he returns to Napa and makes another call to the police from the payphone to indicate he is murdered again. So some of the background on this is that when Sergeant Huss went to the parking lot in front of Blue Rock Springs and observed a 1963 brown Corvair parked in the southeast area of the lot, this Corvair had the head and tail lights on. The left blinker light was blinking front and rear. The ignition was in the on position. The transmission was in first gear, and the head brake had not been set, or handbrake, sorry, had not been set. The radio was playing. The door on the right side was open. In the front seat of the Corvair, slumped over the steering wheel, was a white female wearing a white and blue flowered slack dress. She bleeding profusely and appeared to be badly injured. At the time, the ambulance attendants arrived and removed her from the vehicle. On the pavement at the rear of the Corvair, lying at right angles to the car, was a white male. He bleeding profusely and was being assisted by Sergeant Conway. His body was outlined with crayon, and he was put in the ambulance and taken to Kaiser Hospital. Officer Hoffman went with the ambulance to assist the attendants. Officers Cruz and Guerrera detailed to make a sketch of the entire scene. Fire Captain O'Gara and Fireman Williams arrived with a fire unit with floodlights to illuminate the area in the search for physical evidence. The white female was identified as Darlene Elizabeth Ferrin, 1300 Virginia Street, blonde hair, green eyes, 5'4", 128 pounds. Her date of birth was 3/17/47. The white male was identified as Michael Renault Mageau, date of birth 10/29/49, black hair, green eyes, 6 foot and 170 pounds. Now, maybe that might be why he underrated the size of his suspect, because he happened to be a tall person to begin with. I feel like short people have a better idea of a person's height than a tall person does when they're trying to gauge height, because they're already substantially tall. How do they compare themselves to somebody else? And maybe that's why he felt that the suspect looked smaller than him, even though he had a flashlight being shined in his eyes and he never really got a good look at the suspect.
Can I add one thing? Because I know before 1970, if you were under the age of 21, you were not an adult. You were still considered a minor.
He would have been 20, I think, and Darlene Ferrin would have been 22, as far as I can.
So she would be technically the adult, but him. So I don't know, because then I'm looking at that and I said, gee, that's funny, because I know in 1969, if you were under 21, you were still considered a minor.
Right, right.
So would it be, but you know, we're splitting hairs here, but I just noticed that I said, no, he would be considered a WMJ or you know.
Oh, yeah, that's
that's definitely splitting hairs.
Yeah. So Michael Mageau, we've discussed his description as we talked about the cherry picking that Tom Voight and the crew likes to say that I did in regards to descriptions. But the police officer was able to determine that Mike was unable to judge real well what the suspect's age was. He'd only gotten a side view while he determined 26 to 30 years of age. I scratched these numbers off my list simply because he did not get a straight on view from this individual, and he could not really assess the age of the perpetrator. It states in the police stuff that he just saw a subject's face from the profile side view and does not recall seeing a front view. States there was nothing unusual about his face other than it appeared to be large. Michael stated the subject did not have a mustache, nor was he wearing glasses or anything. He could not recall anything unusual except that he had a large face. I find that interesting because when I look at some of Jack's pictures during 1969, 1971, he does have a large face. Mm-hmm. He does have a big, broad jawline and a large face. Let's see. I think that all of the rest of this can be read if somebody goes back to the podcast and takes a look at it. But I did pull out an excerpt from Dennis's book, and it says Mike Mageau survived, but he did not get a good look at his attacker because the attacker shined a flashlight in their face. that brings us to the first communication, which I'm excited about because this is my forte and this is where I'm at. So he sent in 3 letters with a 3-part, we call it a 3-part cipher because it's really known as the 408, but it was sent in 3 sections, 1 section with each letter sent to 3 locations, to the San Francisco Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and to the Vallejo Police Department. I'm going to read this off in a second when I get to a better version. This one is kind of a crappy version, what I could find on the internet back when I started this with Dennis. I think Dennis probably actually gave these to me. So they're circa 2000, 2001. But the July 31st, 1969, this letter in itself went to Vallejo Times Herald. Oh, I said Vallejo PD. I'm sorry. Vallejo Times Herald. So it went to 3 newspapers. Mailed to the editor, as most of the communications are. The like Black Dahlia, Riverside Phantom, the Cooper Caper, cipher sent with all communications and the description of the crimes. Now, what I did find as far as linguistics, punctuation, and other things in these letters was that the hyphenation was used, which we notate Jack for using, and we've seen before. They uses a double letter spelling error in the word Christmas. So in one communication, he'll spell it correctly. In the next one, he'll make it appear as though he's illiterate and can't spell. There's what I refer to as the this one we handled with the linguistics professor from UC Davis. I and the police know, which is also found in what I labeled as Z7, one of the communications from the Zodiac on line 10 and 13, where he uses the same type of format, which shows that that is consistent with other letters. And yes, the author is one and the same. He also uses the statement "I shall," and we see this again in the Z7. A letter E addition in the word lying in this particular communication. He spelt it Lying. At first, I thought that this was just a common error that the Zodiac had, but after closely examining all of the letters, I found that there was a generous space between the Y and the E and the E and the I, which would indicate that he had to slow down to purposely misspell it to make himself look like he was illiterate. That wasn't a true spelling error, but I think you found another reason for the E's, right?
Well, what I found, like, when I started learning that, oh my God, try putting this on top of the Z408 where those odd spaces were, a scratched out section was. That was, if you can imagine, the Z408 down below has a snap sticking up this way. And if you were to put it on top, it would literally snap into place. And then those corresponding code symbols with their code keys, then you anagram it, it came out and it told a story. so
that's what you refer to as the grill cipher, right?
Yeah, and that method is based on I'm not that smart, but I've been learning as I went along. This is now years later. It's called a Cardano grill cipher method from the 16th century. That's how far back it goes. So that you take something like this and something, put it on top, it snaps together, so to speak, those corresponding code symbols and keys, then anagram. When it's done correctly, it's 99.99% hard to decipher. And then Jack is, by then, this is 20 years, 30 years into this. He's really good, like you said, making it look like he's illiterate. He's misspelled all these words. But now I know when I see things misspelled a certain way, scratched out lines, try to put that on top
that you need to look
onto the Z408 and see what it's got to say.
Right. Now, in these particular letters, as he took credit for the crimes, he indicated that he had used Super X ammo. Now, we know that that was consistent with Texarkana, Dania Beach murders, the Edwards and Dominguez murders, the Swindles murders. Like, the Super X ammo just keeps popping up, something that was readily available at any Army base. He also indicates Western ammo, and I believe the Super X was by Western in the second set of killings on 4th of July. He addressed it to the Vallejo Times Herald. Do you know who owns the Vallejo Times Herald?
Oh my God. Not offhand, because it was a unique newspaper, but it had connections, like all the papers, especially in the Bay Area. to Hearst. You didn't survive without the Hearst Corporation people. So,
well, and there's
but I know the Vallejo police officer that was in charge of this case, I think the captain was a former FBI agent from the 1950s. So we're talking about Jack's era.
And maybe not so far away from the FBI as we would like to think, and maybe still in his new position. So anyways, also the famous statement, please rush to editor. So we do note that in these particular communications that the Zodiac did not indicate that he was the Zodiac. He gave the site symbol, which was consistent with what we've seen with the targets that were sold with the Super X ammo from Sears and Roebuck. Let's take a look. This is a much better version that I just found, and it says this is the reading of the letter. And all three are pretty similar in context, though not every line is exactly the same with exactly the same words, but they are all pretty much the same message. It says, I am the killer of the two teenagers last Christmas at Lake Herman and the girl last 4th of July. To prove this, I shall state some facts which only I and the police know. Christmas, one brand name of ammo, Super X. 10 shots fired. 3, boy was on back feet to car. Boy was on back feet to car. Number 4, girl was laying on right side, feet to west. 4th of July, one girl was wearing patterned pants. 2, boy was also shot in the knee. 3, brand name of ammo was Western. Here is a cipher, or that is part of a cipher, that the other 2 parts have been mailed to the San Francisco Examiner and the San Francisco Chronicle. I want you to print it on the first page. Print the cipher on your front page by Friday afternoon, August 1, 1969. If you do not do this, I will go on a kill rampage Friday night that will last the whole weekend. I will cruise around and pick off all stray people and or couples that are alone, then move on to kill some more until I have killed over a dozen people. So this is the basic context of this. He's now, this is where it's considered an extortion case. He's extorting the newspapers supposedly to print this on the front page, as if they're going to say no because it's going to sell them 1 million papers. No, please don't let me print that. Whatever.
I'm just thinking of all the movies that have come out because of this. So,
right?
Yeah. Hollywood's involved, you know?
Right. And this is the actual section of the cipher that went along with the letter to the Vallejo Times-Herald.
Yeah, printed in the paper.
Right? One of the things that I noted actually, and I don't think I listed it here. Let's see if I listed it on another. No. Okay. So this habit right here of drawing a line from one statement to the next is something that we see Jack do in his communications a lot. It goes right along with hyphenating mid paragraph just to split a sentence or a statement or idea rather than actually starting a new paragraph, or even, you know, using a comma or something that would allude to this is a continuation of the statement. He basically ends one statement, hyphenates, and then begins another statement, or he just draws a line through basically to say I'm done, because he does not have, one of the things I noticed here is that Jack never indents on some of these. There are some he does, but on these beginning ones he didn't at all. He does not have any care, concern for the people he's writing to. He does not have any
he's
respect,
on a mission.
basically. Well, he's not following the rules of writing. He's doing it the way he wants to. And he's not,
well, if you notice, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, like we found out 24 lines. Well, it basically fits right on top. That's what I was amazed when I saw these. They fit right on top of the Z408. There's 24 lines there, and then the line would go through.
We're gonna show them that when we get to that.
Well,
I need to,
I'm getting fast in this.
Yeah. So now this one was the one sent to the San Francisco Chronicle. I was absolutely astonished the other day when I was online looking at some of the stuff that I came across this version of it. This is a clean, clear, high resolution color scan of the document. And we're going to talk about who had this here in a second, but I was absolutely amazed to see it because I don't believe this should be in any public member's hand. But the reason why I know it is the actual letter itself is I can actually see the printing coming through from the light source of the scan on the back side where it says, here is part of a cipher. I'm reading it backwards right here on this particular document. We can also see the color of this document is nowhere near the images that Tom Voigt has shown to people. Obviously supporting my thoughts that those letters have been altered for the purpose of show. So I could only find the color version on the front page, and then I needed to refer to the back page in a black and white scan, but it is a very, very good scan. Like I said, here's the second part of that cipher. We see that there are still things that he has continued to use. He misspells the word pattern by using only one T instead of two. So while he would have double letter spelling errors, he would also have not using the double letter spelling error when he was spelling things, but he would always show to use it correctly in one way and then use it incorrectly in another way. Now, he did use I and the police know in this one as well. Hyphenation usage. He demanded to print on the front page, or he was going to go on a kill rampage. This is also consistent with the all three of these particular communications. He spells Friday F-R-Y instead of F-R-I, period. And this cipher is my identity, he says. Cruise, he spells C-R-U-S-E instead of with the C-R-U-I-S-E. He's going to kill until I end up with a dozen. Until is also a misspelled word using a double L. And this cipher, let's see, cipher, use Lauren Swearingham solve, the www.zodiac-cipher-solution.com. We're going to get to his solve on these here in a second. The envelope again is addressed to San Francisco Chronicle, San Fran, Calif. These are all again consistent with many of the communications we're going to look at. The please rush to editor is there. And on the back side of the envelope is where he actually writes, please rush to the editor.
Can I also add just one more thing? Isn't this was Eaton Bond paper, correct? If I remember right?
Correct.
Okay, Eaton Bond paper was kind of off color, if I remember correctly, back in the day, because my parents had stuff like this. But so this would be technically, theoretically true that this would be an aged Eaton Bond newspaper, not newspaper, but Eaton Bond paper used that would be this color, as age went on.
What I'm talking about is the orangish, peachish version of these letters that we see on Tom Voigt's site. That is not a discoloration of paper. Trust me, as a document examiner, that is a manipulation of technology. This one consistent. Yes.
This is what I would expect to see if I open up something from my parents that had the Eaton Bond paper from back in the day.
It would be a slightly yellowed version. Yes, absolutely. And the other side of that is that Dennis actually found Eaton Bond paper in Jack's shed and turned it over to the Sacramento Police Department or Sheriff's Department. I have attempted to make contact with them to find out if they are still in possession of it, but I have not heard back from them. So I'm still trying to get to the bottom of that, but we do have the intake receipt from the Sacramento Sheriff's Department supporting Dennis's contention that he had given them Eaton Bond paper. Now, this is the admin Horan, the administrator, is where I actually found this full color version scan, which you can see that it is an actual scan of the actual document, which brings into question, how did this guy get it? I don't even know who he is, but he's the admin of the Zodiac Killer Hoax 1986.freeforums.net. How did he get this letter? And the second half of this letter is even a better, I showed this when I started to read it, is a much better version than we've seen over the years. So that means that there are people that are still obtaining and acquiring images from these letters. When is this? This is April 26, 2015, when this letter is posted on his site. So somebody is still dispersing this information or these pieces of evidence for others to handle, to hold, to copy. So if he received this in 2015, the question becomes, where is this letter? Because it's obviously not missing. It's still here. We're seeing it. So basically, I think I've been blocked. I was blocked by him
by Horan on Twitter. so
Really?
that also tells me, that also tells me that we're right and they're wrong. They don't want to hear
I don't know what he has to say about it. I was just doing an image lookup, and I came across the image. Yeah. So basically, letter number 3 went to the San Francisco Examiner. It still had all of the same caveats that the other 2 letters have, same statements, request to print. Again, he's purportedly extorting the newspapers to please print me and make it a big story so you sell millions of newspapers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we've got about 5 minutes left here, so let's move. Where did that go to? To the editor, classic by now, subparagraphs bulleted by numbers, and this is a habit of Jack's. The line to break the paragraph or topic, no indenting. Date sequences are similar to Jack's. Hyphenation with no hyphen. So he basically hyphenates a word, not using the hyphen punctuation. Print this, there will be more statement. On line 17, word or, you will see the check mark R that is referred to by the original document examiners involved in the Zodiac case. I and the police, statement that Jack uses in his security reports, I and the other officers. And line 4, to prove this, need to have people believe, is a need for him to have people believe him. So the Zodiac Killer said it is a cipher. The system is said to have been a unilaterally substitution crypto system with variants. And that kind of brings us to the whole. Somebody recreated all 3 parts, put it together on a piece of paper. This is not something that came from the Zodiac that I'm showing you here, you guys. This is just somebody who has compiled all of these ciphers together into one big massive cipher, which is the 408. So having 3 letters sent is reminiscent of the Riverside Phantom, the Dear Draft Board letters, and now the Zodiac. So we're seeing a pattern of 3 letters being mailed in each of these cases. The 4-line address construction is a match to the address construction in the Sherry Joe Bates, the Riverside killings. Addressing of the city and state shows the use of no comma to separate them, and the state is abbreviated just as Jack would abbreviate it. He did not seem to know the acronyms, or they weren't using acronyms at that point, so he wouldn't use a capital C, capital A. He actually wrote the very beginning of the word, like CALIF, just as he did in the 1963 JFK letter where he wrote TEX. So he is never actively using the entire state name. Well, I think he wrote full out Texas on that one, but in all the communications, you're going to see where he abbreviates the actual state. So it's abbreviated just as Jack does. And also we've seen in the Black Dahlia and the Riverside Killer, he states it is more fun in this particular solve, which is consistent with Patricia Hout's, where he says it would be more rewarding. So we're going to start to hear this fun theme pop up that's going to go along with the communications. Now, this solve on the 408 was actually completed by the Hardens. I believe they were teachers in Vallejo, was it? Vacaville, Vallejo?
Yeah. That's actually near Salinas, I think. Salinas.
Okay.
Where's flooding?
This is what they solved, all but the last 18 letter or symbols of this cipher to say, I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all. To kill something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is that when I die, I will be reborn in paradise, and all that I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you will try to slow down or stop my collecting of slaves for my afterlife. Now, some of the comments I could make on this is that we talked already several times in regards to the communications from 1945 all the way through 1966, where the suspect makes reference to hurry up, slow down, this constant go, 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 or stop, stop, stop statements that are occurring. Let's see. I started to notice also at the bottom here, you can see these 2 circles. Let me get my cursor over here. You can see these circles with dots. Now, I started to find these in every single communication as early as the Sherry Joe Bates communication. So there is a circle with a dot found in the, I believe, the desktop poem. And we start to see these appear in nearly every single communication that he has done. Now that brings us to Lauren Swearingham, and we might have to pick this up and go into the ciphers themselves or the solves themselves next week, because we are at 7:49. I didn't expect us to take that long to get through this stuff. Once again, I always talk way more than I think I'm going to, but
we got everybody prepared for the surprises.
Right. These solves are going to be absolutely amazing. The first one we're going to look at is the solve to the last 18 symbols on the 408 cipher, done by Lauren Swearingham. I had actually done some attempts to get in contact with him to see if he was still interested. Harriette has indicated that he has passed away. I don't know the truth of that since he hasn't responded, but we are going to pick up where I left off with my attempts to contact him and the work that Harriette and I had done with him several years back, so we can set up the grounds for what we're going to look at in his solves. Thank you so much, Harriette, for being on. That means that we're going to get to see you next week as well. Actually, I may go ahead and bring Sandy Betts on next week, and then we will continue with the solves after that. So everybody have a great weekend. Everybody have a great
everybody. Yay.
Everybody have a great weekend. Take care, and we will see you next week. Oh,